Hello, I'm Cat. I started playing VRChat 2 years ago, and recently I just got interested in VRChat filmmaking, and I'm doing this interview series to know how filmmaking works for other filmmakers. So today, I'm inviting Changa Husky to this interview, and we're going to talk about his video for our Furality showcase, which is the Midnight Heartbeat Doggo Edition. So, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Changa. You've been making video for a long time. I'm old, and I've been in and out doing video editing and some effects and things for many decades. Currently I'm doing VRChat content, very complicated things. Yeah.
Is video editing your profession, or it just...
No, well, technically no, but I've had a long history with video. I started editing video in the 80s, analog, and oh heck, I was like doing Super 8 movies in the 70s, and I worked. I was like on the dev team of a piece of desktop video equipment that did a lot of amazing things for the industry back in the early 90s on Commodore Amigas. And I've worked in special effects, although I did mostly do render farming back through the 90s in Hollywood. And so I've had a history around video in and out, but not professionally editing. That's always been a passion, and finally, though, at this point, the equipment is so accessible, and this platform has been just amazing to be able to produce video, just very well, I'd say easily, but a little bit easier than throwing a lot of equipment in a car and driving somewhere. There are so many interesting places. It's really an animation platform. I've been really getting into just producing my own content this way. Prior, I was just getting that creative urge to do a lot of remixes. Prior I was doing a whole bunch of remixes of Zootopia as old TV shows. I was getting very pedantic about when people were recreating. You would see these videos, it's like Game of Thrones if it was like a 90s TV show, and they would get all the details wrong. Wrong aspect ratio, or just things weren't correct, or really badly done VHS. I'm the sort that if I want to get the look of VHS, I will use VHS. I have been dealing with media for a long time, dissecting it, what have you. And so I get very excited about recreating the look of something. Down to damaging tape and crap like that. It was just fun. And I was doing that with Zootopia's X-Files, or other old TV shows that were definitely inspirations. But then I ran out of, material. You could only recut that movie so many times. And discovering VRChat and filmmaking in here, because, the pandemic, and we're all in here, and you start playing around. I knew a few people that were doing YouTube stuff, and there was one, BioGods. He invited me over randomly to be in a video, and when I started when I finally found out, when he sent me a link to the final product, it was on TikTok, and I'm like, wow, there are furries on TikTok? So I created an account, and just to be able to comment and go, oh my god, that's amazing. And I just started posting some of the materials, because I was also recreating I was playing around with recreating like old 80s commercials in VRChat. Like I built a little studio, was like playing around with green screen. And then I just started doing a lot more TikTok stuff and just honing a lot of the techniques, compositing, because I've always had a passion for compositing. And now, well, After Effects. I mean, prior, I did administration on, at least at one post house, on a device called the Quantel Paintbox. You probably have not heard of that, but it was like one of the, it was the After Effects of the 80s. It cost you $1 million, and, you know, you had like some tracking and compositing, and a lot of music videos of the period were done on similar equipment like that. And, but finally getting to really sit down and just do my own thing, it's been a lot of fun. You know, it's long way of,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been doing film and video a long time.
Can you talk about your video for Furality?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah, trying to come up with ideas, and that's always the hard part. Like the one for Aqua, that was a basic idea, and I had no idea where I was going with it, and a lot of like figuring it out as I went along, except for a core idea and some core image ideas. This one, leading up to after the announcement, you know, deadline and all that, there was one song I really wanted to do a music video for, Purple Disco Machine, Hypnotized. I really loved the song, but I couldn't think of a darn thing to do. It's still on the list. And then I had at least the core of the idea. I wanted to do a music video. I've tried to composite so many things, and I have dead projects. Because, I mean, I will walk away from a project if I'm hitting a lot of brick walls. I try not to sweat it. I know some artists will just like agonize over something, but sometimes it's good to just throw it aside.
Sure.
Don't delete it, because you may revisit it at some point. Like maybe you learn something and go, oh, and it flows out. So I have a lot of like attempted composites, and there were music videos I really wanted to do. I wanted to do Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. And, you know, while I did a lot of research into hell, I'm like trying to figure out, okay, what kind of a video switcher were they using for that kind of look? You know, and I was like looking into who, you know, the history of the production, all that, because I wanted to know why it had the kind of analog jank in it. And yeah, I had a lot of things like that. Like when I originally wanted to do that, I realized I cannot do that movement. I will break every bone in my body. I have arthritis. My joints don't work as well. So even though I have full body, I realized I could not do that music video. And there's other projects like that were just laying around. And then I had that idea. Why don't I just do all the videos? Get it out of my system. Find a good song and then do a history of like music videos through all the decades. And then, like with all these compositing jobs, choosing your battles is like kind of important. Because like you could look at something and go, ooh, I can do that one. I can do that one. I can do that. Oh, I have no, the camera's moving. It's handheld. It's the problems become. Yeah, well, I mean, when like anything that starts going handheld, right? The original footage is handheld. Your problems just go exponentially hard. You can do it, maybe, but now you're into like hand rotoscoping, and so there's a lot of projects like that. There are a lot of projects like that. So the idea here was like, well, I could pick and choose then. If I'm gonna like just do all of these shots through the years, I can just pick the ones I know it can do, and some of them that are like a little past that comfort zone, and just mix and match. And I realized I could storyboard. what a concept. I never storyboard, but I could like grab all these, find all the sources, and cut it ahead of time. And then I could start working on all the shots. Oh God, there's 45 shots in that video in 2 minutes. The way it started, though, is finding the music and the midnight. And when I found that one song, I'm like, it's a perfect vibe. And so the project started with grabbing the music and taking a hacksaw to it. It's a 2 minute, I mean, the limitation is 2 minutes. You can go over, but every point you go over, I start feeling guilty a little bit. I mean, technically, the original song is about almost 4 minutes. I can't do 4 minutes. So, as a matter of find the core of the song, get the proper ending, and like try and not have a scene. You can hear it, and it came out really good. I got it to about 2 minutes and 15, 17 seconds. And I was like, in there. And then finding the actual cut. Editing is really important, of course, on beats or on the right points, because like little bits, sections back and forth is really important, although I do like to not be precise on beats and things. Precise-ish. There's a lot of feel, but also the motion, right? So the other part of this project was I could revisit things I already did, but do it better with my newer texture map, because I cringe when I look at my old bumpier texture map. But I could redo stuff and use those stuff from failed projects. And so I immediately pulled in some of the shots from my older videos. There were points that were just like tent poles, just things where it's like, this has to be right here. There's a shot from the B-52's Rome that I had like originally composited where the guitarist is going by, and that had to be right on a particular movement of the music. That stayed exactly where it was. And then you just start kind of feeling it out. And yeah, so like the flow of like motions are important, and as well as when things were cut, and I just kind of felt that out, and then the long process of figuring out each shot. 45 of them, roughly. 30 music. Eventually, it ended up being 30 music videos. And I asked around, people way younger than me, what do you consider iconic for music videos? Because I know from the 80s what I could consider, and maybe some of the 90s. So it was a process of kind of slowly working at one at a time. Some of them are easy, right? It's take the shot in Photoshop, erasing people, but then you end up with this very static photo, which does not look like video when you put yourself on top of it. And so the process of adding shadows and, well, I will tend to do things like, motion blur. There's a wonderful plugin, RSMB, for doing simulated motion blur in After Effects. It's gorgeous. Camera blur to take the edge off of the footage. Film grain and gate weave. I have to add a little bit of wobble, and then it starts coming together and looking like original footage. And those are the shots that end up like Gangnam Style. I had to do the Gangnam Style elevator, and technically there's no original footage in that. It's, find the shot where the elevator is closed, Photoshop it, making a mask. There's several layers. The doors are separate. Reanimate that from scratch. Taking the green screen layers and distorting them into shadows and reflections, and it just ends up being so many layers, and then a little bit of chromatic aberrations and grain and things. It all kind of adds up till it starts looking like real footage. Whereas others, I'm integrating it into actual footage. There's several where I have to make more of a traveling matte. So taking the footage, erasing somebody, but then integrating it so it doesn't look like you've stuck a static image on top of real footage. That's where grain, noise, all of these things just kind of, and a lot of it's feel, and hand tweaking masks too, with feathering, so it all just kind of integrates. Though there are shots like at the beginning. You spin me round. I am a little higher with my hand up, and because the ball would have been above, but I'm trying to cover up some jank because he swings his hand like up, and I can't reproduce all the pieces of the reflection, so covering that up a little bit. There's all that give and take, and there are so many. Well, there are so many shots, and some of it is really really difficult for timing. It's like you have to time yourself to something that happened in the original footage.
Yep.
Oh, that's always a pain. I have been chasing more and more equipment. Now I have a 4090 just for the VRAM, so I can run After Effects at the same time when I'm recording VRChat. Just because it's like, and I try this.
Same.
Okay, take the headset off, dump it into into After Effects. It's like, no. Oh, fuck. Yeah. Because the only way is you have to test it. You have to test your shot. And it's so hard to get yourself set up to record. Even with, I have a studio world with green screens. Oh, hell. It's even sillier. It's not only do I have a lighting rig on me, I have a green screen I can drop in world and I can make grow, and I can, I've got like production equipment. The struggle is real. But even once I found kind of like the cut, and I'm working on it, things got shuffled around, and I was having a really hard time with the ending too. Because you really do need a flow, like pulling us in and then out. Originally, I had, in fact, on my YouTube, I do have a making of. There's a long description too, but what it is just a side by side with one of the last storyboard cut, and that has a lot of already cleaned backgrounds, because as you're working, like, oh, this one's easy, you paint it out and then you slap it in on top of where the footage was, where it's going to sit, and it's not perfect, but it's just there, and that shows you kind of like the timing. But I was having a hard time with the ending. I started looking around for other things like gorillas. I'll do gorillas. Maybe Dare. I could be the head, or with Noodle dancing around, or and playing around. And then I saw Barbie Girl, and I'm like, oh, it's perfect. I can erase Barbie and I can kiss Ken, and it says the end. It's my ending, and that was hard because, well, as you can tell, I have to be in the right position. I have to turn. I have to hit a mark. There's some wiggle room, but that was a lot of trial and error. Now, that original idea, so once I kind of got the full cut, now it's time for, let's face it, a second video, because now it has to go through all of these composited televisions. And I did that first shot, and it was okay. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I had like some stuff. And then as I sat there thinking, oh, now I have to make way more of these, and now it's going to start obscuring my footage that I spent so much work compositing. I'm like, how about I just have it on screen entirely? and left it at that. But since I opened with it going into a TV, I wanted to go out, and I realized Weird Al's UHF. It's perfect. It's just, there's the ending. And the flow of that, it was 4.5 weeks of overall work, roughly. And I'm babbling. Let's see. I could go into detail about any specific shots, but that is kind of the whole like flow of how that came together. Trying to, I wanted more of the song, to be honest. There are sections of the song that I just adore, but I just couldn't make it work and within that time. And then there's the realization of, if I did another minute, I've already doing 45 composited shots. I don't want to spend 8 weeks on the project. Yeah, and it was a matter of knowing and living with the how living with that at that point. Now, some of the shots were there's one shot from Faith Fillmore's Epic, and it's like painting hand is instead of an eyeball, it's a tennis ball. That I did for another video. Somebody did a version of that song, but it was no take, only throw, and I composited that. I loved it. And as I started working on the music video, I hated it. It looks, I love that shot, but I could not make that video work. And so I got to recycle shots like that and put it in there, and it just fit. And so I did at least save some time in the production by reusing projects that I'd already done. Other shots helped me get outside the comfort zone. Virtual Insanity, I was compositing that with its original footage. It's hard to tell, but the bird flies by, so it isn't just a static shot. And Blue, those monitors that come around, that's when I had to start getting into using Mocha. Mocha, really, really useful for tracking, and
I haven't used that.
That one,
I want to
it's really good. I agonized a little bit because I had to start really learning to use Mocha. I'd previously used it for some cell phone shots, but you can really run into well, it's really good for like tracking kind of like those perspective moves. And I had to really wrap my head around that. And that was good, because that was part of the point of the project also, was to get outside of a comfort zone and learn more of the tools. And I definitely achieved that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had another question.
Yep. Besides After Effects, do you use other?
When I do lip sync, because I agonize over the lip sync, and I don't just pump the music through the headset. There are too many weirder mouth flaps, and it's fine. Even trying to use AI tools to remove the music, very unsatisfying results. So I have to essentially do, I almost jokingly call it like verbal puppetry. You like listen to the song at the same time, enunciating the lyrics, being very, oh God, I would not want to play those audio tracks for anybody. Hell, I don't want to hear them. But the point is to get the mouth to act properly, to the music, and you have to sit there with the camera screen and pay attention to that while recording, but then syncing it up after the fact. I use SoundPad, and now how I have OBS set up for recording, it's kind of like a Furality thing our team does, but we have multiple audio tracks, one that will record in world, mic is separate as a separate audio track, and it's a little bit easier to mix and match after the fact. But I also have a audio file that is like 10 or 15 seconds of no audio and a beep. And I will stick that in as the first track and the actual performance track. And then that ends up on the recording, so I can just visually go, there's the beginning of the performance, and then sync it. Though at this point, even though that beep is a good marker of performer, each performance, because God knows there's so many attempts in all of the footage. I will tend to spin it right to the first beginning of the mouth moving, and then to the waveform, dragging it down, and then watching it, just seeing if the lip sync looks right. Though I admit, as I look at it, there are places where I ended up letting that slip, because the other problem with the project is it shifts frame rate through the whole thing. There are many things where the music videos, the original source material is film, so it's film frame rate, and the things that should be video are video frame rate. Once in a Lifetime was shot on NTSC video, so I'm keeping that frame rate. And so I can end up with like some weirdness with the lip sync. The real test is, did I cringe when I'm looking at it? And if I'm okay, I will continue. And each of those shots, like I would line up the performance clip in After Effects, the green screen, for each of these sections, because they're different performances with the same audio. And I would shove that into After Effects. Usually I end up undoing in Premiere, so the original track is still there, but now that cut with that timing is in After Effects, and I can work with it, render it out, and place that on top, and clean up the project as I went along. And there have been styles I've been chasing. My Aqua community showcase, I was trying to mix a very specific composited look, like Talking Heads and She Was, which was composited photo sequences. There's one shot of that in this video. It's like these photoed hands in like a projected screen that was originally David Byrne. There are those sort of things that I wanted to play with. I still do. There's some three-dimensional but flat composited stuff. There's a term, graph film, which was animated photos. There have been several film sequences. Yellow Submarines, the animated film Yellow Submarine, The Beatles, if you've ever seen that, the section Eleanor Rigby is a vibe I really want to be able to reproduce. There was an entire film, animated film, Twice Upon a Time, George Lucas, that's all these black and white and like colored cutout photo sequences mixed with like 2D animation. And these are there are styles I just want to play with and figure something out, which will probably bring me to the next creator showcase, which is a real problem. I have no idea what to do or how to top anything I've done at this point. I'm still working on trying to get back into TikToks. I finally posted a couple. And that is a fun thing about TikTok. I'm using that as a way of chasing, experimenting, playing around, but also drilling into my head. Brevity. Really important with editing. How to tell something very efficiently.
Yes.
This is something that I have dealt with like over the years in just cutting things, because there is that tendency. You love a particular piece of footage and you can't let go. And maybe you should. I did some intermission videos for Aqua. I did a Technology Connections parody, if you know that YouTube channel, home lighting with Luma crystals. And I originally took his script for one of his lighting things, chopped it up, rewrote it for Luma, and then I shot it, all, recorded audio. And once I had shot it and I'm cutting it, I cut like a minute out of it where I'm just being brutal, going slice, 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 slice. Yeah, now it actually flows. Because it's really easy to lose sight, especially when you're close to material, to let go and trust in chopping something down. There are a number of films I could mention that probably could have used with being a little heavier-handed with the editing, because sometimes, as I say, you can fall in love with a joke or something and not have the discipline to let it go because it's not helping whatever it is you're cutting. And that's one thing that at least I'm having a fun time exploring more. Being on the video team, the video production team at Furality, is having to do that, having to pay attention. And TikTok has been wonderful for that. Just developing that side of the editing skills.
Yeah.
There, as well as also paying attention to like the flow of things. When you're like compositing in, like reproducing a commercial, I reproduced the old CD collection Pure Moods. There is some level of edit by numbers. I'm taking the original and I'm reproducing all the cuts as they were. And that is one style. Like, you're cutting, for the most part, you're sticking to the original shots. And you don't have to worry about that, but you still have to worry about like what you're doing, because you may end up like fucking with the actual timing of things, and maybe even shortening like a sequence. I mean, like with My Shining, every time I'm cutting to the doorway, I can play with the timing of the original scene. But like the thing you did with Scream, I thought about Scream at one point, looking at that original footage. I never looked at the parody movie, and that was what I appreciate about what yours is. Really had a feeling of Roger Rabbit to it. I think maybe also it helped. A couple of the shots where you're running down the stairs, because I mean, let's face it, you're having to fake stair movement. I don't know what you did, but that ends up being a little bit Muppet, a little bit and toony, and hiding those scenes is tricky. I have to admit, I've watched your thing immediately going, and I can see the seams, and something people wouldn't notice, but I'm thinking, that was a bitch to clean up that background right there, because I can see the little bit of a mess there.
Yes.
I'm thinking the living room shot, I think maybe use content fill, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
realize that there are flows in certain scenes, but most of them are maybe less than 1 second.
most people.
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, and that's how you get away with it too.
yes.
It's like, how fast is it on the screen? Like my shot of Katy Perry's firework, in the fireworks are shooting out, and it's that shot on a balcony. There's fireworks on the sky, and it's like my back. The original shot. One thing you don't start realizing when you're looking at it is the shot's moving. And that's a perspective shift too between her, the balcony, and the skyline. That made it like extra complex. And what I did end up doing is I took the balcony. I spent a lot of time. Oh, God damn it. There's no AI tools that probably could have made this easier in Photoshop. But, trying to erase her legs and area from that. And I had to have a mask where she was, but I still want to be able to keep the fireworks. But the perspective shift, I'm reproducing with the foreground element that I'm like moving towards the backdrop, and then I'm covering up with shadow. It's kind of obvious when you look at it, but I am putting more shadow layers around my butt and all that area because I'm covering up the mess that I'm trying to erase. But with the lighting, it's fine. A lot of special effects is covering up mess. There's a reason why in the 80s, like the movie Alien, why it's so dark. There used to be jokes about movies within that element, that style, where the sets are just garbage bags and tubing, covered in black paint. And then there's lighting, because they're just texture and they're hiding what's terrible. Now, certain movies, as we get higher resolution scans of, you start to really notice how bad the effects really are. There are shots in The Matrix where you're seeing stuff they hope no one would have ever seen. Because you wouldn't have noticed it. It'd be up on screen too short of amount of time.
Yeah.
And you can get by. I've been immersed in this for decades. And I will notice like the shortest little blip somewhere that's like, okay, what's wrong with that? I mean, back in the early 90s, the company I work for, we made early desktop video switcher with computer CGI software and a nonlinear video editing device. Believe me, in 92, it was hard to do nonlinear video editing. 9 gig hard drive was fucking this big, and we could get 22 minutes of video on it. But got very used to looking at because we had to analyze, because we were rolling our own video compression, and being able to notice ooh, what the heck am I looking at? What is that little blip there? And I used to really get into analyzing old animation, really big Laserdisc collection. Get the Disney box set, and you're single framing shit. You start to get an eye for that sort of thing. But there is, with special effects, especially cuts like this, there is that moment where you have to sit back and go, good enough. I'm gonna let it stand, and most people won't notice, and the whole thing together.
What is the hardest shot in your video?
It was once in a lifetime. On laying, with the blue and kind of moving that, because of the frustration of the full body tracking, and I left that for quite some time, but also the source material. I grabbed the original cut that's on YouTube, and I railed how bad it was. It's cropped, so a lot of the jank I'm looking for is chopped off for some reason. It's the wrong frame rate. The thing is uploaded there with the wrong frame rate. It looks terrible. It's been sharpened in really bad ways, and so I'm like, that's it. I've got Talking Heads Storytelling Giant was their video collection. I had that on VHS. I bought it years ago. I was just going to pull it on my collection, and I'll just digitize it myself. Damn it. I want to see the original closest to the original. And I couldn't find the tape. I must have gotten rid of it. Damn it. And so I went on eBay and looked for a copy of that. And surprisingly, I found one that looks like it was pretty much from the Warner library itself. Warner Brothers, like their post department, they would send out and things like that. So it's like, ooh, yes. And I digitized that copy of that. That gave me a better look at it's at the right frame rate, and got to look at all of I even reclaimed some of the analog noise, composited into my stuff. Hardest thing, there was a particular type of ringing around him that was likely due to weird delays in the Luma keying they did with that switch. I want to know what video switcher they use. It's probably a early 1981 Grass Valley. It might have even been one of those early digital models. And it had a weird delay that caused that weird color fringing. And I wanted to reproduce that. And I agonized over it. There was a pretty much close enough, but I couldn't get the look right. It's good. It's fine. I want to do it better. I had to let go. I had to let go at some point.
Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, let's see. You're doing kind of like the sort of content that I've done. Well, what inspired you to put yourself in and redo movie scenes?
First of all, I have background of multimedia design, so I know certain stuff like doing some easy special effects. Secondly, I'm also working almost all by myself, so I realized it's probably easier for me to put my avatar into some kind of footages rather than inviting a group of friends and thinking about creating a new script. And
there's a mood I totally relate to.
And since the movie scenes you're trying to create already exists, I hope more people can relate to it.
Yeah, there is that kind of connection. Like a lot of stuff I'm doing, there's some nostalgia, and you can admittingly it's an easy way of probably getting a connection, but a lot of it's like passion too, isn't it? Like, here's something that I really love and I want to play with it. I want to recontextualize it. I want to take it and play in a different direction, remix. Yeah.
When I'm doing a new project, there's always something new I want to experiment with, so I can learn something from it. I'll probably, when doing a new project, I'll probably 70% of it I'll probably use the knowledge which I already have to create it, and the last 30% is something new which requires me to learn, to produce.
Yeah, that's the technique I've been doing is, you already have particular skills and things that you already know, and you look at something and go, I know how to do that. I'm not so sure about that. And there's where the fun comes in, something that is just outside of what you know, but you think think you could do it, and then you learn something from it, and then use it for the next project. Yeah.
Yeah. Since you're in the Furality team, I would like to ask, so what are you responsible for?
Oh, well, I'm a video producer, and well, definitely, I definitely am a go-to for them for compositing. I can't imagine why. And the team, there's quite a few people on it now. They're all so good with different skill sets. And we have various things assigned. I've done, the safety video, at least a couple of them. I did like trailers. I did the trailer for Finn's Room, and things like that. We also tend to do intermission videos, so you get inspired and do something silly or whatever that gets played between events. We end up doing the video on demand, which is like after the con, cutting together, all of the panels and things, and advertisements and like marketing things. There's like all of that, yeah. So basically, I'm a video producer, and so the job ends up being a lot of things.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And in fact, this one, I got things thrown at me at Silva. I composited the opening, the couple opening things for the community showcase, the part reproducing the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, the tree like being drawn and coming to life. I had to come up with a quick solution for that. The person who, our pipeline guy, Kaboom, he had some original ideas. He works professionally. He's in Hollywood, and he had some ideas. He had some stuff, but he ended up getting pulled into creative, and his workload got so heavy that I jumped in and took care of that shot, as well as that little Valve intro, little parody. Oh god, that was so much fun. But I mean, again, compositing, that was like a last minute. I know Brim wanted something like that, and he's like, "Here, I want to do this." I'm like, "Ooh, how do I do that?" Took some photos, played around. All of that is just all static imagery.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, thanks for joining
the
interview.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, no, this is my pleasure. It's great. This has been fun. Yeah.